Love finances the other F word and want to support the show? Become a patron by going to patreon.com/FTOFW. You'll get special features, a shout out on the air, and early releases. Or if you prefer, pick up some merchandise at financestheotherfword.com.
As fantastic a CFP as Mel O is, and as wonderful an attorney as I am, please do note that anything said in our show are our opinions alone and are not meant to be taken as financial or legal advice.
Welcome to Finances, the Other F Word, a Gen Xer podcast for musicians and music lovers, where we discuss money and music without all the pretentious bullshit. Here are your hosts, Zoe Terry, attorney at large, and Mel O, certified financial planner and author of Finances, the Other F Word. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey guys, welcome to Finances the Other F Word, and I am so fucking excited because we have a kick-ass guest for you today, Rahmaan Phillip, and I said it's singular. I know, I was so close. I wanted to say Phillips because, you know, I pluralize everything, who is, you know what, I'm just going to have to read you from his website because the guy is so amazing that when we started talking about the acts that he had played with or performed for, quite frankly, I couldn't write them all down. So his associated acts are Lady Gaga, Gwen Stefani, Imagine Dragons, Tony Bennett, Chaka, George Clinton and the Parliament Funkadelic, Demi Lovato, Quincy Jones. He has a story about that he's going to share with us. Kevin Hart, Hilary Hahn, Brett Young, the Dalai Lama. What? Oh my God, dude. Okay, we're talking about that too. President Jimmy Carter, Lifehouse, Bush, Coley Buddz, Pablo Alboran, Sister Nancy, Danny Wright, Robin Leach, Clint Holmes, Christine Michelle, Mayor Oscar Goodman, who was the former mayor of Las Vegas, and Jane Goodman, his wife, also mayor. Lique?
The Leak.
Ooh, the Leak.
Yeah.
Okay, David Osborne, Bunny Cunningham, TEDx, Bachting, UNLV Symphony and Chamber Orchestras, which I was excited to see, College of Southern Nevada Symphony Orchestra as a featured soloist, and UNLV Community Concert Band, which I was in at one time, Rahmaan, and we are so excited to have you. So he is a violinist and a violist. So before we get started, I know that if I remember correctly, a viola is larger than a violin, but what's really the difference? Is it just one of them's lower, like how the saxophone gets bigger and gets lower bass? Is that it?
Yep, that's exactly it. Yeah, viola is just slightly bigger than the violin and it's tuned to fifth down. So they're both played exactly the same, but viola strings are the same as a cello strings, except 2 octaves higher or 1 octave higher. I should know that. I think 1 octave higher.
We won't test you on it, so it'll be okay. Yeah. Because I know when I played saxophone, I started on an alto sax and moved to bari, and it was the same thing, except, you know, you just switch to bass clef, et cetera, et cetera. So you have performed.
And can I just jump in? When I played recorder, I started on Descamp recorder, and then I went to bass recorder, just so as I can get in with the musicians.
A recorder, isn't that something you played in elementary school for fun,
Absolutely.
but not actually reading music?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But still, I just wanted to be part of the music gang.
Well, noted, I guess. So now when somebody sees all of those lists of people that you have performed, and Shaq, and I forgot to mention that one, the people that you've performed for and that you've performed with, for your right now, currently, you were on the jazz and piano with Lady Gaga. So she has, she had 2 residencies down here. One where it was her more, you know, her pop music. And then one was it where, like, you know, she had done a duet with Tony Bennett. And so she does a lot of the Great American Songbook, which for my Sinatra people out there like me, you're going to know most of those songs and it's amazing. And so you're currently playing with her on this residency. So how does somebody who plays a violin get into the pop world with all of these stars? I mean, that's got to be an interesting story. How did that all come about?
Yeah, so I'll start from the beginning. I picked up the viola when I was in 6th grade, and you know, I grew up in Las Vegas. I didn't really take it seriously when I was a kid. And my senior year of high school, we got invited to play Carnegie Hall. And that completely changed my life. Like I was a skateboarder. I was kind of getting into trouble. And then, I get this opportunity to perform at Carnegie Hall, and just being able to travel and see the world through music that young, and standing in that building made me really want to see what I can do through music. So I got back home and I bought a viola, and I literally just started locking myself in my room and just practicing for a couple hours a day. And I got my first viola lessons when I was 18, and I started going to community college at CSM, where I continued lessons. And then I auditioned for a scholarship at UNLV and got a full ride scholarship, not because I was an outstanding violist, but because there's always a need for violists in an orchestra because it's such an obscure instrument. So when I was in UNLV, I just kind of just obsessed over classical music. I wasn't really listening to classical music as a kid, but I really, just being in that environment, I just devoted like my whole life to it. And alongside my collegiate studies, I'd also be hanging out at open mics and just around as many different genres of music as I could be. And I learned to improvise playing the blues, and that's another story in itself. But what that led me to do was kind of blend in and fit in with all these genres of music. So I got a reputation around town. I was just kind of everywhere. At every gig that anybody would have me, I was there on stage. I was playing for free, and I was actually busking, and back in like 2014, and an agent happened to hear me and my friend. We ended up getting residencies in lounges on the Strip. So that's how I got into the pop music scene. So long story short, just kind of working hard, having the very strict classical background, but also being curious about other styles of music and applying myself to that, and learning how to improvise, which is very important because a lot of classical musicians don't know how to do that. And that's why I was able to create a lane for myself out here in Vegas, because there's just so many other styles of music happening. So yeah.
And
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. And that was the thing, like when I was in band, is they were saying, look, if you're a saxophonist or a flutist or a clarinet player, you better be so amazing because you are never getting a scholarship, but they were like, hey, if you want to play tuba or baritone, something like that, then it's a little bit easier. But even with that, I mean, that's kind of the key, right? Because when Vegas is being Vegas, I mean, we have a lot of Cirque du Soleil, musicians here. We have a lot of talent that comes through here. And you're right. I mean, I haven't ever heard a classical violinist go on a jam session ever. You know what I mean? Or be able to change the styles of music. So, because when you think of instruments that you want to pick up and become professional in, people think guitars, drums, stuff like that. And I love the fact that you've done what a lot of people are trying to do, but you did it in an instrument that you wouldn't necessarily consider as being something that would be blues oriented. So how do you make the violin or viola, how do you make that bluesy?
So as a 20-year-old, when I was really deep in my classical studies, my first gig was this man named Jerry Brookings. He was a bass player in town in Vegas, playing with like, please forgive me if I get the names wrong, Lena Horne and Dina Washington. And
I think it's isn't it Dinah Washington?
Dinah Washington. I'm sorry about that. And I gotta listen to both of their albums right after this podcast, just out of respect. Can't believe I got Dinah Washington's name wrong.
If that's right, I think it's right. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so too. But I got invited for this gig. He was doing like a burlesque, show, and he wrote out all these charts. He was like a genius big band arranger. And he saw something in me, I'm 20 years old, and he's just like, hey, kid, I like your ambition. You need to learn how to play the blues. And I'm just like this really green, bushy-tailed young musician. I'm like, okay, like this guy seems to know what he's talking about. And he became my mentor. And for like 5 years, I helped him with this show. And not only did he teach me my minor pentatonic skill and how to improvise over the blues, but I also learned a lot about composing and arranging. But for whatever reason, he saw that I should understand how to improvise, and he taught me, and I was able to use it. And what he helped me understand was that when you can improvise, particularly over the blues, you can apply that to any style of music because it's the same changes, really based off of the 1, 4, and 5 chord. And then songs just get a little bit more intricate, but really that's the roots of all modern pop music as we know it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you hear Led Zeppelin has said that, Aerosmith has said that, Rolling Stones, that's where they all started, and then they built on it from there, and then they just tweaked it as necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you get your first person who was would be considered a major actor, a major star, that saw you as a violinist and said, hey, I need that guy because of XYZ? Like, would they hire you for, hey, I want a song and I want a violin on the song? Like, I'm thinking of Never Tear Us Apart by NXS, is just for some reason that's the video came to my head and they're playing violins. Or is it more like, was it a situation where, like with Gaga, where she's like, I love this music, but I also love this music, and then that violin fits in that music? Like, how do you first get approached to be a violinist in a pop music space?
So I would say the first major act that I performed with was Danny Wright, and he's like a crossover pianist, classical, and he does a lot of everything from spiritual music to show tunes, Broadway songs, things like that. And yeah, he's like sold millions of records worldwide. And just through chance, I happened to meet him. This was back in, I think, 2011. So I started playing shows with him. Besides that, I've toured in country bands, and I mean, that music kind of requires a violinist, and how the opportunities come is just me kind of being in the right space. And in all the instances, somebody heard me and just thought, hey, that could work. They heard something in my style that was just, interesting. Like, if they would have heard a different violinist, it probably wouldn't have had the same effect. But yeah, I guess just the combination of my blues and classical background. The people who have worked with me have heard that and thought that it was something that they could use.
So what's the difference between a fiddle and a violin?
Just the name.
Okay, that's what I always thought. And obviously the style in which you play it, right? Because of course, Charlie Daniels Band immediately popped into my mind because Devil Went Down to Georgia is one of my favorite songs. And so it's the same, obviously it's the same skill set. It's the same instrument. It's just played in a different way and, different tempo, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
So did you like playing country music?
Yeah, I love it. Country music is literally blues. Like, it's the same change. It's just a slightly different rhythm. And yeah, it works perfect for my instrument.
So what out of all of the music that you've played, what is your favorite one? Is it classical or is it the blues? Because you seem like you're very partial to that.
Those are definitely my cornerstone. I would say Baroque and blues are like my cornerstones. Yeah, I'm a huge Baroque fan. When I learned about Bach and I started studying him in college, like, I think that man did everything before the year 1750 when he died. I think that he achieved everything that could be done with the tempered 12-note music system.
Yeah, and I had never researched Bach, but I mean Baroque music. I love that. I just love the simplicity, but not simplicity of it. Especially if I'm relaxing at night, it's just one of my favorite movies, favorite music to listen to. And
Mhm.
so you touring with Danny Wright, and then from there, do you go, well, shit, I might end up becoming a touring person, or was there already another gig waiting, or was it kind of like you came off tour with Danny and then it's like then you're kind of in a sea of obscurity again? How did that work? How did you transition?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and I think that it's always a funny story. 10 out of 10 musicians will tell you it's like a funny story how they happened to get there. So with Danny, I was playing shows locally in Vegas, and it was getting me that I was still doing my own things. Like I had a band, my own band at the time, like a rock band, and we would do mostly covers in Las Vegas, but we would also have originals, and that kept me working as a working musician here. And then I started playing with Danny as well, and we do like 1 or 2 shows a month, so it wasn't my full-time gig, but that was playing with somebody of his caliber just kind of leveled me up a bit. So after that, I started getting different calls, and um, I got a call to perform with like the UNLV jazz ensemble as a soloist. And then, after that, um, just a series of bigger profile gigs would happen. I can't remember them in the exact order, but also Danny is the person who I got to perform with for the Dalai Lama and Jane Goodall. He was getting high profile gigs like that.
Wow.
So yeah, it's one of those things, like they all say it only takes one gig, right?
Mhm.
You get that one gig, and then from there things kind of pop off. And that was my first performance with Danny. Once I started performing with him, no longer was I an obscure musician playing smoky dive bars.
Mhm.
Like I kind of was able to pave my way up in the ranks.
What,
Um,
what was the name of your band?
stoked,
Stoke.
stoked.
Okay, stoked.
Yeah,
All right. Are
it
you sure
was
with the
real cool.
Stokes? Hmm.
Yeah, it was real fun. Like that was a time in my life. We became known as one of the more popular local Las Vegas bands. And yeah, we would play shows from like 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. 4 nights a week, all up and down Fremont Street in the Strip. It was the funnest time I had.
Now, I understand that during this time, or sometime as well as doing all this music, you were also working for a shop or something, restoring and repairing violins. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Tell us a bit about that.
Yep. So I was working at Violin Outlet, the local Las Vegas music shop, which is where I got my first viola, funny enough.
Mhm.
I remember it like it was yesterday, 2010. I'm excited for my next semester at UNLV, and the luthier there, Jim, looks at me and says, "Hey, you want to learn how to set up some instruments?" And yeah, I learned that, and the next thing I know, the boss Mara tells me that I'm an apprentice. So that's what I did for the next 9 years,
Wow.
is learned, repair and restoration.
And do you primarily do tours or residencies or just kind of one-off gigs?
Now it's a mix of each. 2018, 2019, I was touring heavily,
Mhm.
and I'd say 2019 I started to lean more towards corporate and solo gigs and residencies, just because this show talking about finance, it was the better option for me at
Mhm.
the time. Um, and now it's just a mixture of each, especially coming out of COVID. I can't really do much besides take things as they come.
Because I would assume that if you were heavily touring, that the fact that you repaired and worked on violas and violins came in handy a couple times if things started breaking or something, and you had, a gig that was going on and maybe you were in a pinch, you could, fix it or
Oh
solve
yeah,
the issue. That's why I had asked that question.
Yep. I've had bridges break and I was able to buy one and throw it on, and sound posts fall and all kinds of stuff. And yeah, it's come in. It saved me a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Whereas the average musician would be out of luck for like a week or two.
Right.
So I need to know. So when you met the Dalai Lama, we're gonna Dalai Lama and Quincy Jones. Those are the two of the ones I want to touch on. Did he just have an aura of peace about him? What it was like, and then how did you end up playing for him? What did you play? Where did you play? Like, I want the whole story.
So the Dalai Lama, I did not actually get to meet him, but he did get to hear my music. Mm-hmm. And to me, that is a great gift because of the series of events that led up to me being able to give to the Dalai Lama, to be able to give some music. It was playing with Danny Wright in Utah. It was called, I believe, the Summit of World Religions. Mm-hmm. And let me actually Google that really quick, just so that I'm not mistaken.
And did you say that was with Jane Goodall was there too?
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing too. God.
Jane Goodall, Dalai Lama. I think it's called, the word summit is in there. I believe it's called the Summit of World Religions. I'm going to have to actually double check that. But it was a gathering of a lot of religious leaders from around the world, as the name implies. And yeah, that was one of my first big profile gigs as well.
And what did you play?
I accompanied Danny. I don't remember the songs that we played exactly, but he was playing piano and I was playing my viola. And we performed, it was probably a 45-minute set.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
That is so amazing. And Jane Goodall on top of it. And so then you had mentioned that you had played in front of Quincy Jones and you had a story on that. And obviously Quincy Jones is a legend in musical circles. So tell me about that story. How did it come about and what was it like? Did you get a chance to meet him and talk to him at all?
Yes. So back to my story about busking and meeting an agent. So the agent gets us this gig in the Cromwell. I go from literally like playing the Las Vegas Strip out on a bridge, 120 degrees in the summertime, to wearing a full tuxedo, being the first musician to perform in the Cromwell and have a residency. And I did that for like two or 3 years. And it's a Vegas lounge gig. It's really nice, but it's an upscale lounge, so it's not very crowded. Guy Fieri has come in, different celebrities, and we're just playing. And I see this older man come in with like a masquerade mask, and on his arm, holding his arm, is Miss Belize with a Miss Belize stash. And I could tell that it wasn't just a costume, like this legit had to be Miss Belize.
Right.
So they go get a drink and they just sit down right in front of the stage on a little couch. And they're just, having a good time. There's probably not more than 10 people in the lounge at the time. It's a slower day. And on my break, the bartender tells me that's Quincy Jones. And I got really nervous. And I went up to him and I shook his hand and I told him, thank you so much for everything that you've done for music. Literally, without you, I wouldn't be able to be performing it right now. And he's just like real cool. He's like, yeah, no problem, man. You sound good. Like real casual, real cool.
Right.
I was like, man, I just went back and kept playing. He sat back down and, just had a good time. And yeah.
Yeah. And Quincy worked with Sinatra and worked with
everybody.
Yeah, they played at the Sands. It was the big live at the Sands with the, oh my God, why can't I think of him? He was the huge conductor. I know there's listeners screaming the name at me right now, but anyway, and I remember reading some of Frank Sinatra's book, and Quincy was in there, and watching a documentary on Quincy, and that had to be because I would have been nervous too. Like if you weren't nervous before, now you know. And he's in the front seat, he's in the front row, and this man does everything, can do
like
everything,
7
and he's
feet away from the
listening.
stage. I was cool, and then when I found out, my heart was just throbbing so bad. Like I was like, oh my goodness. And then, you know, it's one of those things. As a musician, you just kind of get through it, and we're all really critical on ourselves. But looking back years later, I'm like, that was the greatest thing. Like I didn't even get a picture with him, but like the fact that he listened to me for 2 hours. You know, if anybody could pay you a compliment by listening to you, I think that's the man right there.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. More so than I would think Jimmy Carter, but I mean, playing with the US president is pretty impressive as well. So how did that go down?
Let me back up. It was called the Parliament of World Religions, which is what I performed for.
Oh, okay.
Goodall and Dalai. How I ended up performing for President Jimmy Carter. Let's go back to the bridge that I was busking on. I would busk on the bridge between Caesar's Palace and Bellagio.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'd have to walk through the Bellagio to get to the bridge, and I would hear this beautiful piano music, and it was David Osborne. And I would always come in and just talk to him and just tell him how much I like this music. And he got used to just seeing me around. He always made time for me. I thought that was so cool. And yeah, he kept telling me, I'm gonna back up a little bit. I became friends with him on Facebook, and he saw that, you know, I was getting higher profile gigs and things like that. And he says, yeah, you know, I really want to play with you, do some gigs with you. Sure enough, he calls me and says that he's performing for President Jimmy Carter's, I believe, his 95th birthday in Plains, Georgia. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to accompany him for that.
What an experience.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And yes, Mr. Jimmy and Miss Rosalind are two of the nicest people, very sharp. They have such young energy, which I thought was very nice. I would like to be as in good health and youthful as they are, if I'm fortunate enough to live that long.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be an obscure question. When you said like their energy. So when you're playing, how do you, and hopefully this is going to come out the way it is in my head. If you're playing the blues, there's a certain energy. If you're playing for Quincy Jones, there's a certain energy. If you're playing next to Lady Gaga, there's a certain energy. And I mean, I believe this is just that your energy can change the way the music comes out and sounds. So how do you either focus that energy for the appropriate thing, or how are you able to refine the energy to put whatever energy needs to be put in for maybe that sorrowful piece of music or whatever you're playing? How do you get yourself in that headspace so your skill level makes the music come out with the exact emotion the music's trying to portray? Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
I think I finally reached a level of maturity recently where, to answer that question, it is being authentic and just knowing I am the musician. I am making this song. And I think when I was younger, I would try to create a certain kind of energy, and that adds another boundary between you and the music. When you're like thinking about it too much, you know, you kind of want it to be sincere. You know, sincerity is the most important. So just be authentic. If you're having a good day, like have a good day. If you're having a bad day, have a bad day. You know, mistakes are beautiful if they're sincere. You know, perfection, if you're striving for that, it could take away. If you're too focused on being perfect, it could take away from the art. So does that answer your question at all?
It does. It's just because I know that because I go to the symphony. Well, I did before COVID, and now it's back on a lot. And I just there's sometimes where I go and I'll listen to a piece of music that I've heard before, or maybe I haven't heard before, and all of a sudden I start crying.
Yeah.
And it's just a classical music piece. And so that's what asked the questions. And that's for the question.
Yeah. That's the hours and hours that the musicians have put in years ahead of time. I guess that'll be the first thing is, yeah, you really, in order to understand a piece or your instrument, it takes years and hours to be able to be that comfortable, because what it really, in order to make somebody cry, that's sincerity. That's what you're hearing. But in order to be sincere and genuine, first you have to put in all of the at least 10,000 hours of back work.
Right.
So yeah, get to know your instrument, get to know yourself, study the music, and then after you've achieved that, be true to yourself. And that's what people hear, that's what people feel. Yeah, some of my favorite performances are, you can't explain what it was about that performance, but it's just something behind the technique and behind the notes that makes you feel. And that's the only thing that I can say is just when you're being true to being present, being true to the moment, and other people can connect with that.
So I always wanted to know the answer to this. What does it mean when they say you have to listen to the notes he doesn't play? What does that mean? Because to me, that just sounds like bullshit. I'm like, how am I listening to notes he's not playing? So please explain that to me, because that's always bothered me.
Man, it's funny you say that. That's like my thing now. As I said, I'm finally reaching this new level of musical maturity. And I would hear that all the time, stuff like that, right? I get it now.
Well, educate me, because I still don't get it.
Okay. I could pull up on YouTube a 6-year-old playing the most complicated piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it will be impressive. But that 6-year-old cannot play the simplicity of BB King. And, BB King is BB King.
Yeah.
And what I equate it to is when they say it's about listen to the notes that he doesn't play, I equate music to food, right? When you think about the best food that you've ever had, it's not going to be the most expensive food that you've ever had. It's not going to be the fanciest food that you've ever had. It never is. My best example is my aunt Azola's catfish. Most delicious thing I've ever had in my life. What makes it special? It's not too salty. She didn't put too much batter on it. The oil wasn't too hot. It's very simple, no special ingredients, salt, pepper, and batter. And that's, is what she didn't do. So listen to the notes that the musician didn't play with the maturity and the wisdom,
right,
to know how to make their point most effective. You're taking away from certain things by adding other things to them.
So would it be like when you go to a rock concert and they add notes and stuff that aren't in the normal song, and they're trying too hard?
Yeah, but I wouldn't say going to a rock concert. I say that when somebody tells you listen to the notes they didn't play, they're talking about a particular artist. And that's the important thing. I would assume, Mel, that you have favorite artists, right? Mm-hmm. Can you name off the top of your head what favorite artist today? Somebody who you're listening to?
I mean, I'm a rocker chick, so I mean, but let's just go back to Frank Sinatra. I mean, even though I know that he didn't do the orchestrating and stuff, but I love Frank Sinatra. And you know how he put that it's called the Frank Sinatra sound, the little trumpet, but that just goes over random pieces of music that has nothing to do with the actual tempo of the music or the way it's flowing. So I love Frank Sinatra. I love a lot of the crooners from the old Vegas. That's something that music, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a good example?
Yeah, and Frank Sinatra's perfect, right? One thing about Frank Sinatra, he never sounds like he's over singing. He never sounds like he's trying to sing higher than anybody, right? Mm-hmm. That's all stuff that he's not doing. There's other singers who are doing all that stuff, but not Frank Sinatra. That's what makes him him, because he's not doing that stuff. He's not over singing.
Mm-hmm.
He's not hitting super high notes. He's not singing bebop and scatting. That's Frank Sinatra. That's what makes him him, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna have to ponder that, because that's just something that's, because I thought, man, am I just not getting the music that I don't understand? Like, I literally thought it was maybe notes that they didn't play on purpose, and then somehow you were supposed to derive that. But it sounds like just kind
No.
of, it's like a keep it simple, stupid kind of thing. Like, you know what you're good at,
Yes.
and so you do that to perfection, so you don't need all that extra shit.
Yeah, and I guess notes, you're thinking of it as like actual like F sharp, G, A, B. Like it's not that. It's just any kind of sound. You know, yeah, just any, replace the word notes with things. Listen to the things that they didn't do.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And that was I know that was another obscure question, but I just thought, man, you know what? This is the guy I'm going to ask, because he's going to know,
Yep.
he's going to be able to explain it to me in a way that I can get it, you know?
Do you like In-N-Out?
In-N-Out Burger?
Mm-hmm.
I do not. I actually cannot stand their burgers.
Never mind. Never mind.
I know, but everybody, I mean, if you are from the West Coast and you go to the East Coast, you have the biggest hard on for In-N-Out when people get here. There's every day, you guys, for those of you who don't know In-N-Out, there is at least 20 to 30 car, without exaggeration, in line. And it's crazy. And they have like 5 things on their menu: cheeseburger, burger, double cheeseburger, double burger, fries, shakes. Like that's it. And then they have a little special menu. But I mean, people go crazy over it. And so that would be another example of like keeping it simple, stupid kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Thank you for answering that question, because I always wondered that. So.
Right. Yeah. As well as the violin and the viola, I think I read somewhere in your blurb that you also play, I might say this wrong, but the kora, is that right?
That is how you pronounce it. I don't play the kora. I would love to learn how to play the kora. That is my favorite instrument to listen to.
Oh, is that's where I got it from.
I've never even heard of that instrument. What is it? What does it look like? Is it wind, percussion? What is it?
It's the African version of a harp, and I believe it originates in Senegal. It is like a giant gourd. It looks like a drum head with some kind of skin over the top, and then a long neck and several strings coming down.
Oh, I've seen those. I thought it was a guitar drum or something.
Yeah, that's exactly
well, it is, but it's called a kora.
Yeah,
so,
it's more of a harp.
So you don't play it, but you but you really love it. So
yes,
my stalking is not 100% accurate. But
that was good though. That was good. You dug in the crates to that's my absolute favorite instrument.
Okay.
Yes.
It looks fabulous, because I had a little look up and I'm like, wow, it is an amazing looking instrument. So
we can't all play the recorder, Zoe. So
well, kora's next on my list. So, you know,
absolutely. You've mastered the recorder.
Yeah, I am.
Kora, here you go.
Yeah, that'll be next. And next time we speak to Rahmaan, I'll be like, hey, look at this.
Right.
All right. My another question is, you've just come back. You spent the past 2 years living in Vietnam, correct? And I believe you were teaching children how to play. Was it the violin?
Yes. I had private violin students, and I was also teaching at an international school, teaching music, performance education.
So tell us a bit about that. How was that as an experience?
Vietnam in itself was amazing. Our 2-month trip turned into a year and 8 months or something like that. And it was the best experience of my life so far. I came out there with only like shorts, sandals, beachwear, and I didn't have a violin or anything. So I bought a violin, and I wanted to work because I wasn't sure when things were going to open back up. And I just wanted to keep some money coming in. So I started gigging out there, and people reached out for me to teach. And I was initially reached out to by a man whose family is a part of a vegan community. So I was just teaching. There was like 11 kids. It's a private school in the community, and yeah, that was beautiful.
Oh, so your plan wasn't originally to go out there and teach. You were just going out there for a trip, and then it just blossomed into this year and 8 month teaching fest. Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. So that kind of kept your finances afloat during this COVID.
Yes.
Right.
I'm assuming the kids knew how to speak English, or because that would be quite a language barrier unless you speak Vietnamese.
A lot of them spoke English, and the ones that did, their English was better than my Vietnamese. And the father was also there, and he spoke English.
So if a Vietnamese person in this example plays a piece of music with the same skill level and talent level as, say, an American, does the music sound different? Because I would assume it would, right? Because of the cultural influences that, I mean, I'm just curious. I don't know if you can answer that question, but.
Or a recorder. Does it sound different in Vietnam? That's just a sidebar.
Yeah, they had a recorder class. Yes, the style that they play sounds different. It is the Vietnamese traditional style. Violin, on the other hand, is like a really new instrument. So the violinists that I did hear there were learning the traditional Western style, like what I'm familiar with. And then they would adapt and play Vietnamese songs on the violin. So when you heard a violin, it didn't sound different. But when you heard the recorder, it did, because they have a traditional Vietnamese recorder.
So that wasn't a silly question after all, Mel.
Yeah, that's actually.
Thank you. So obviously you're currently playing with Lady Gaga again for the second time. How is that going? And tell us a little bit about that as an experience.
Lady Gaga has been amazing. It's very busy. We rehearse when the show is happening. We do rehearse a lot. There's a lot that goes into the production. It's around 40 piece orchestra with horns, strings. The conductor and musical director is a man named Michael Bearden, who is a legend in his own right. He's worked with Madonna, Michael Jackson, just kind of other people, Quincy Jones. The interesting thing about this whole situation is, like, everybody who's in this thing has worked with Quincy Jones also, or I actually should say, Quincy Jones has worked with everybody. And it's really cool to be in that environment. And it's super fun. As Mel mentioned earlier, she's doing a lot of songs out of the American Songbook, Cole Porter, songs like that. And her vision is, she really grew up like listening to jazz, and she got famous for pop music, but she really has that's what she talks about. Like, before the show, she'll just come into, the green room for string players and be like, yeah, like, I was listening to this jazz album, and we'll just start talking about jazz. And I think it's really cool because I also grew up listening to jazz, and it is important for the future generations to at least remember it and know, like, just as Europe still listens to classical music, they still very highly in Germany and Austria, especially, like, listen to Beethoven and Mozart. That's never going to go anywhere. For America, we still do need to listen to, like, Duke Ellington and Cole Porter and all of our great songs. And she thought that it was a great idea to do it in Vegas, where this music started.
And she's a metalhead, I heard, as well, which makes me love her all the more. So they always find her at the front row of, like, metal concerts, and she's just enjoying it and rocking out.
So what's next for you, Rahmaan, after, I think the Lady Gaga residency ends at the end of the month, right? So what's next for you after that? So
I have private gigs happening November through December, and then in January I'll be performing for Intel at CES And after that, I plan to go to Mexico and Thailand and just take it easy and wait for the Gaga shows to come back. And I'm not exactly sure when that will be because of how busy her schedule is, but usually they let us know a little bit over a month ahead of time.
You mentioned, I think you mentioned a gala that you're doing soon with Imagine Dragons and that you've done before, as well as a fundraiser that you've done with Gwen Stefani. So talk to me a bit about the kind of charitable events that you've done, including those, if you don't mind.
I've been very fortunate to do some fundraisers and charity events for really high profile celebrities. The one that I did with Gwen Stefani was for a charity called the Cure for the Kids organization, and they raise money and provide services for children with cancer, and they have their own facility where they actually treat the children. And Gwen Stefani, because she has her residency here in Las Vegas, she's been involved with that for a while. So the event that I was able to do, I was providing the music for the charity event. So I was the one performing for the celebrities.
Right.
That was very nice. And I'm actually doing another event similar on Friday for Imagine Dragons. They have an organization called the Tyler Robinson Foundation, and it is also for children battling cancer, and they're raising funds as well. So that's the event where I've gotten to meet Shaq a bunch of times and hang out with the Golden Knights. And I don't even remember everybody who's in the room, but that's real fun.
Are you a hockey fan by any chance?
I don't watch too much TV, but I do like hockey.
Yeah, we're big hockey fans in this house. So both of my boys have got to go to a few games. I've been to one, but right now, obviously, I'm letting them go to the games. And
yeah, till you're all healed up.
Yeah, but one of my sons is a huge Zach Whitecloud fan. And my husband went out to dinner with his daughter the other night, and at the new Italian restaurant down at Tivoli, and Zach Whitecloud was at the table across from him, and he was trying to take sneaky pictures for my son to see, but he didn't bother him because we're too cool to be, bothering stars. But my son was beside himself when he got home and he heard that he'd missed him. But yeah, we're big VGK fans here. So
nice.
Yeah, I don't care about hockey.
I knew she was going to say something by
I know, not at all. I do. So I want to thank you for coming on, Rahmaan Phillip. See, look at that. I got through the whole show, did not say it pluralized, for a lot of reasons. First of all, because the story was interesting and I love the instrument. But more importantly, a lot of times when you think of Vegas, you still think of cheesy lounge acts, or you might think of, big stars that might come through here for concerts, but you don't understand how much entertainment there actually is in such a small radius, where people have to have a real skill set. You have to be a real fucking musician who knows how to play in order to be able to participate and to have somebody who's homegrown, who, again, with a classical yet unconventional instrument in that aspect, and knows how to actually play the thing, is like super. I'm super happy to know you. So plug all your stuff. Let everybody know how they can follow you, all your social media, your website. I will also put it in the show notes. Let them know how they can find you.
Thank you. If you just Google my name, Rahmaan Phillip, RahmaanPhillip, all my stuff comes up, just because it's such a unique name. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, even though I only have like 30 followers on Twitter. I still try to, update everything. Facebook, YouTube. I am going to be recording an album later this year, and it's probably going to be released early next year. And I'll be shooting more fun music videos and all that good stuff. So yeah. Keep an eye on it and 2 ears out.
What kind of music on the album?
So I want to record my originals for solo viola, inspired by the Bach cello suites. And I'm going to record a few pop albums as well on violin.
Excellent. Oh, we look
That is
forward
so
to hearing
cool.
those. Yeah.
Do absolutely. When they come out, let us know so we can share it on our social media and post it and everything. And again, we just really appreciate you coming on. And with that, I think we are out this. Oh, and Zoe's back. I didn't even make a big deal out of Zoe being back. So yay,
Yep.
Zoe's back.
Welcome back.
So
Thank
now
you.
she'll be here for the interim. So with that, we're out this bitch.
We are.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you like us, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.